Alright, what's going on, guys? When I was thinking about what I want the title for this video to be, I kept coming back to the title, Elden Ring Could Change Forever. And that might seem like clickbait, but I really can't think of any better way to describe it. Because there was one big change in patch 1.07 that I really don't think people even began to grasp the magnitude of. It's laid the groundwork for a completely different future for the game that I don't think anybody could have seen coming. And it's the one thing that I've been the most hyped for ever since the game first was announced. But it's also something that I think a lot of people are going to be a bit adverse to, simply because they don't understand what we're talking about. And that is the way that PvP is about to be completely revolutionized in DLC 1 of Elden Ring. Now, I know there's a majority of people out there who really don't care about the PvP of Elden Ring, but I really want you to watch this video and try to understand, because there's a very big possibility that PvP could be the forefront in Elden Ring's DLC, and you could miss out on some of the most fun you've ever had in these games, because I don't think we realize what's going to be coming. When Elden Ring first came out, there was an argument to be had that PvP was sort of an afterthought, and while I didn't necessarily share that opinion, the evidence was in the favor of the people that did. When Elden Ring first came out, the PvP was almost unplayable, the matchmaking was terrible, there were so many overpowered weapons, and builds that could make you literally invincible to any other player characters. And so it turned a lot of people off to PvP and gave new players a very negative perception about what PvP could even be. Now, those of us that have played the Dark Souls games and know FromSoftware's experience with PvP, we knew how good Elden Ring's PvP could be with some work. If you kept up with Elden Ring's development cycle, you know there were some hiccups along the way, and so it was likely that they pushed the PvP work to the back end. But we now find ourselves after patch 1.07 in the best place for PvP that Elden Ring has ever been. It almost feels like an entirely new game. Things are more balanced than ever, you don't get one shot by Ashes of War anymore, and with the overall decrease in player damage, the fun lasts longer. And this is all thanks to one change that they added in patch 1.07 that we were asking for a long time, even before Elden Ring, and that is a separation in damage for PvP and PvE scaling. I want you guys to realize this single change completely revolutionized the future for Elden Ring, and possibly all of FromSoftware's titles that include multiplayer going forward. The biggest obstacle that myself and others that advocated for PvP balancing had to face was trying to show that these balance changes would be worth it even though they affected PvE play. But now it doesn't matter anymore. We can now have the best of both worlds. You can still feel like a god with your maxed out character in PvE, but then not worry about getting one shot by everybody in PvP. But what this means for the future is that FromSoftware has a vested interest in balancing PvP and keeping a living and organic multiplayer experience alive. Now here's where we lose some people. Souls games and FromSoftware games are not live service games. They're not fighting games, and they're not necessarily MMOs, but they do offer one of the most unique and satisfying multiplayer experiences in all of gaming. It is not an afterthought, it is not a tacked on feature that doesn't matter. The Souls games are PvPvE, and the past few Elden Ring updates have proved that beyond a shadow of a doubt. And one of the ways in which the Souls games have leaned into that in the past is through the addition of competitive multiplayer. Now, when I mention that, a lot of people tend to get mad, but what they don't know is that Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, and even Demon Souls in some capacity, all had competitive match-made multiplayer with a ranking system and leaderboards. Now, I know that sounds like live service blasphemy, but that was a part of the Souls game's identity. It wasn't a product of modernization and monetization. It's been there since the beginning, and is something that Elden Ring has noticeably lacked. Now, what we talked about in the last two videos is that we know these Coliseums and ranked multiplayer are coming to Elden Ring in DLC 1. This was found in the files of patch 1.07, and is basically as close as we can get to confirmation as possible without it being official. Now, I'll quickly touch up on him. There are 3 Coliseums around the map of Elden Ring, one in Caelid, one in Limgrave, and one in Leyndell, that are almost certainly going to be dedicated PvP arenas. And updated versions of them were found within the files with the tagline arena_DLC01. But here's the thing, what we need to think about is what these are actually going to be, and how they can revolutionize PvP for Elden Ring. Because FromSoftware has clearly stated that they have more in store for balancing PvP in Elden Ring. Patch 1.07 wasn't the end-all be-all, it was only the beginning. Because now that they have the ability to separately balance PvE and PvP, there's no more hassle in making changes in one that may negatively affect the other. And it's because we can have real balance for the first time that Elden Ring multiplayer can be truly revolutionized. Ever since Elden Ring's released, even amidst the horrible balancing, community events have been popping off. Fans have made their own leaderboards, their own matchmaking, and their own tournaments constantly. And there was even the Twitch Rivals event which put the top streamers up against each other. FromSoftware has taken notice. Now, the arenas are very grand in scale. They were clearly designed with an intention in mind. And with Elden Ring removing solo host invasions, there was a desperate need for a dedicated 1v1 duel arena. But I don't think that's the only purpose these arenas are going to serve. If we look at the pattern of the way FromSoftware has done multiplayer arenas in the past, they've been evolving. We went from the battles of stoicism in Dark Souls 1 to the ranked fights of Dark Souls 2, and the undead matches of Dark Souls 3 revolutionized the system by introducing multiple game modes and bronze, silver, and gold tier rankings. I think Elden Ring is going to take it even a step further than that. With the new balancing system, we have more build variety than ever, more flexibility in character movement, the extra dimension of jump adds a whole new way they can develop maps, and dynamic weather can also play into the mix. There's more opportunity than ever to change things up. So I'm sure we'll get 1v1 battles, 4-player free-for-alls, maybe team 2v2s, but here's something you also might not have been expecting. When they data mined these arenas initially, there were also files for enemies that would have been involved in the fights as well. Notably the duelists, which even in the lore are described as the fighters of those Coliseums. So I'd wager that in these matches you're going to be fighting against the duelist as well. And I can only imagine how much fun that's going to be. You're going to have to be thinking, do I want to attack this person or do I want to take out the enemy first? It's really going to lean into that PvPvE like I was talking about. Now a while ago too, there were files for a ranking system that were unearthed. However, I'm not sure they were necessarily tied to the Coliseums, but they were to represent the different PvE factions such as the Recusants, the Bloody Fingers, and so on. Something I would really like to see, and I think they probably will add, are in-game tournaments. Match-made brackets for players who want to engage in that. Now the Coliseums did have areas inside where you're going to be walking around. Probably different items you can interact with to choose which kind of game mode you want to engage in, but I'm sure it's also going to have places you can view active leaderboards and your own player metrics. Now a big part of the Souls community that was missing from Elden Ring are fight clubs. Places where people would host up to 6 players and have a tournament in their own world where everybody could spectate. Those were pretty much the highlight of the community in PvP back in the day. And it made the game feel much more social, which I understand if you don't think that's a priority in a technically single player game. But it did a lot of good in keeping the community alive for a long time. And in the PvP scene, that's been a strong point of what's absent in Elden Ring. Currently, there's no incentive to do PvP, but you guys watch what I say, whenever those arenas open, we are going to see a massive boom in the PvP community. And I don't mean only from people who currently play PvP. I really think it's going to be the catalyst for all these people who only like PvP to come and try it out, and to realize, oh, I was missing out on all this fun, and I'm going to play this side of the game that I never really knew existed. Now, if that happens and this road continues for a while of more people coming to PvP, and it's starting to make the waves that I think it's going to make, this might be a stretch, but I think down the line we could potentially see official tournaments held in esports for Elden Ring PvP. Now, trust me, I understand how ridiculous that sounds, but look at that foundation that we've been talking about this whole video. We now have PvP specific balancing. We now have direct evidence that FromSoftware is focused on PvP balancing. We have the arenas coming where so many new people are going to be engaging in 1v1 duels, where many players are going to be grinding for leaderboards and ranking systems. It's a very real possibility that we could be moving to a legitimate stage for Elden Ring PvP. And guys, I've heard some rumors, there's been talks about it. So in conclusion of this long-winded ramble, I know there's a lot of you guys who watch my channel that really don't care whatsoever about Elden Ring PvP. I understand, but I want you to get back into it whenever the DLC drops, because I think there's a massive opportunity here for everybody to experience these games in a way they haven't before, in a revolutionized way that actually works now. And I think the culture around it is going to shift dramatically, all combining to make Elden Ring vastly different than what we experienced before. But let me know what you guys think down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll catch you in the next one.